We have a bulletin just received.
I've never encountered anything like this before.
Apple Garageband for music and sound effects. This video is about adding music and sound effects to your animation using Apple Garageband. Once you've completed your animation in After Effects and exported your animation as a QuickTime video, you're ready to place that QuickTime video into GarageBand and add sound effects and or music as appropriate. You are required to add sound to enhance your animation. So here's the guitar icon for GarageBand. Click to open. So with a new project, we're going to choose Empty Project. Choose. And then I'll just choose this first one, Play Sounds from your Mac, just to show you that this is possible. You can have virtual instruments here and actually hit record and play them in real time. But we'll close that. Drag in the movie. The first thing we're going to do is drag our movie into GarageBand so it adds a new layer for the movie. So my movie was saved to my animation folder here. Scott Ligon animation, no sound. It's the flying guy. So I'm dragging it in and you see a big movie preview here. Now I can grab this and I can make it smaller. I can grab it by one of the edges and shrink it down. And when we do want to do that, we want to be able to see it well enough to know where the music is and the sound and how it syncs to the video. But we don't want it big enough to obscure the tracks that we're working on. Okay, so we can see it here as a little preview, and here it is up here as a movie track. Okay, and here we have a timeline, just like in After Effects, and you can see over time the movie changes, etc., etc. Add loops. And you see the little thing that looks like a loop over here? Click on that. It says Apple Loops. Click. This is where we're going to add music and sound effects. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a sound effect. Here, I'm clicking on the tab that says Sound Effects, and it's all in alphabetical order. I'm going all the way to the end. You can scroll down here. You can also do a search if you knew what your file is called. So I'm going for Wind 6, and you can see you can preview it here, right? Or here it's off, here it's on, and if I like it, I'm just clicking, holding down, and dragging it on to a new track. And I want the wind to keep going for as long as he's flying, and when he flies off, we're going to make a crashing noise, and then we'll make the wind stop, okay? So far we have wind, and here's what it sounds like, and you can see the image right here. And we'll make the wind stop right about there. Edit. So you'll notice that this file is larger. It keeps on going past when we want it to stop. So there's a couple ways that you can edit it. So here's where you can zoom in or out of your timeline. That works a lot like it does in After Effects as well. I've zoomed all the way to the left so I see my entire sound effect here. And notice this is where my movie ends here, and the sound just keeps going. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you could shorten it. One, you can just grab the end here and you can see where the icon changes, and I can shorten it just like that. Okay, and another way to do it is to select it, make sure it's selected, looks like that, and go to Edit, Split Regions at Playhead. So now I've chopped that in half, right? So for instance, if I wanted to move another part of it to another place, I could do that. But I can just hit delete and that part goes away as long as it's selected. So it ends right here abruptly. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get out of sound effects temporarily. We're going to go back there in a little bit for a crash noise. But we're going to go to Ensemble, and we're going to go to file that says, oh yeah, here it is. It says classic anthem music. Okay, appropriately cheesy. So now I'm dragging that on its own layer, not here, replacing that, right? But I want this to loop to the extent that it lines up time-wise with the end of the wind, okay? So what you can do with a sound, if it ends right here, you can't really stretch it anymore, see? But if you go up here, see how it has the loop? You can make it loop again. So I'm dragging it out so it duplicates, it repeats, and it stops where I want it to stop. Okay? So now I have music and wind. Okay, and that goes to volume. We want to adjust the volume of this layer, right? This is selected, this is the wind selected. So we want to select the layer with the anthem music, and we want to turn it down because you really can't hear the wind anymore, okay? So I'm turning it down, and you always want to use the meters, the sound meters. You don't want anything to go into the red. It's better to turn stuff down than turn it up when you're mixing. So you want everything to be audible and be a good mix of sounds and have everything be heard. But I'm turning down the classic anthem music so I can hear the wind a little bit better. See how that sounds? Okay, that sounds pretty good so far. Now we're going to go to all drums, and we're going to go to a file called Deep Cycles Beat. Okay, so it's kind of driving with the cheesy synthesizer music. And again, I want to go up here so it's a loop, and I want to extend it so it lines up with the end of this. Okay, and let's see what that sounds like. Okay, that's pretty good. I think I'll turn down the drum a little bit because it's really about the music kind of being underneath the wind, right? So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, that's pretty good. Pan. Now, besides adjusting volume, another way to get a good mix where everything is really clear is to adjust the position, the pan, so the sound appears to come more from the right or more from the left, and everything can have its own space kind of in the audio field, right? So for the wind, I'm going to click and hold down and drag. So this is over here, about where 10 a.m. would be on a clock, okay? Then I'm going to go to the synthesizer music, and I'm going to pull the other way. I'm pulling up on it, clicking and pulling up, so that it's the opposite direction. It's going over here about where 2 o'clock would be on a clock. And I'm going to leave the drums right in the middle. That's traditionally what people do when they're mixing a song. So you have the groove kind of being right in the center. And let's see what that sounds like. So everything kind of has its own space. Okay, so he just flew off, and now we're going to have a big crash. Okay, in order to do that, we go back to sound effects again. I'll move this out of the way. Sound effects. And I'm going to crash junk 3. So crash junk 3 sounds like this. So you can place a sound effect so it occurs right when the visual is happening. So here, instead of placing it at the beginning, we're going to place it a little while later. So off screen, the figure flies off screen, and right when the music stops and the wind stops, we're going to have it crash right there. Okay? So it sounds like this. Okay. Dragging a sound into GarageBand. So the next thing I want to show you, I've recorded the word sorry, and I've got it as a sound file. It's a .aif file, which is a good non-compressed file. You can also use an MP3. So you know how we dragged our movie in? We can also drag this in, the word sorry, sorry.aif. So I'm just dragging that right in and dragging it and letting it go, and it makes its own layer, and it's even called sorry already, right? So when do we need that to happen? We need it to happen right after the crash, a couple seconds, right? Or a second and a half. Now I'm moving over the word sorry over here. Let's see how that sounds.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Audio effects and filters. And let's say I want to apply a little bit of reverb, make it kind of echoey. So in order to add an effect, you select the right layer, you press this little button here that says Smart Controls, click, then you go to the I for information, I guess, and then you go down to the bottom where it says Plugins, and you hit the arrow and open it up, and you can see this has compressor, which compresses the sound, makes it more in your face because there's no big highs and big quiet parts, and most audio for movies or music or TV is compressed. Then EQ here, and you can add an effect over here. So I just clicked on it and I picked reverb, and I'll pick platinum reverb, and here's a reverb, and I can adjust the reverb time, the amount of echo, and how big it is, and I'll just see how that sounds without making any changes, and it should apply only to that sorry layer since I selected that. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, too echoey. I'm going to make the reduce that, and I'm going to reduce the reverb time. I'll see how that sounds.
Sorry about that.
Okay, that's pretty good. So now let's play our movie and watch how it looks.
Sorry about that.
And one more thing I want to say before exporting your movie, which is the next thing we're going to do, make sure that none of these sound meters are in the red, and the sound meter up here, make sure that's not in the red either, right? So we're looking, and all of this is pretty good, and it doesn't look like anything is going into the red. You don't want your sound to distort. It'll ruin your video. Exporting a QuickTime movie in GarageBand. Okay, and now we're ready to export our final movie from GarageBand with sound, and this is the one that you'll actually hand in. Go to File, Movie, Export Audio to Movie, and where it says Preset, be sure to change that. If you do 480p, you're going to make a tiny low-resolution movie, and don't choose full quality because it's going to be a really huge file size. So the sweet spot is to pick HD 1080p as the preset. Make sure you know where you're saving it. I'm going to save it to my desktop just so I know where it is. And I'm not going to call it no sound this time, right? I'm going to call it with sound. And then you know that's the one to hand in, okay? And hit save. And our movie is exported to the desktop, and be sure and watch it before you hand it in. Make sure everything is like you want it. I'm looking forward to seeing some moving compositions, literally and figuratively.